So the main question to ask is, how bad is it? So I get to read out the patch notes yesterday, and they were a little bit demoralizing because there's a lot of nerfs that happen, and I'm not really sure how to explain them, I guess, is the best way. I just don't know how to explain them. I don't understand some of these nerfs. I don't understand the purpose behind it. I don't really understand what Blizzard were trying to go for. That's the biggest issue with it, is I just don't really understand them. I guess that's all I can really say about it. The nerfs were pretty weird, but it's one thing to look at them on paper and see what they're like, and it's a whole another thing to go and test those nerfs out for myself and see how well I'm doing or how poorly I'm doing. And I definitely feel the nerfs are a little bit... No, I don't want to say detrimental for PvP. I don't want to say detrimental because everybody will think like, oh, detrimental, the rogues are just completely inviable. I think there's a better word for this. But it definitely doesn't feel as good, you know? Okay, so some of the things that I noticed. One, elemental shamans. If you're an Outlaw Rogue and you want to be a CC bot for an elemental shaman and then give them tricks of trade every time you have it up, that's probably the best way to go for 2s right now because they deal so much damage. And if you're on PTR, get yourself with an elemental shaman, be their best CC and a stun bot that you can be, and then you'll have yourself, trust me, a great time. One. Second, I'm not really sure what the fuck my damage is coming from as an Outlaw Rogue. It feels like I definitely did get nerfed kind of across the board. One of the things that was nerfed for me was the capability to burst somebody with more run-throughs. It wasn't a run-through damage that was nerfed. It was mostly deeper stratagem that got nerfed. So it used to increase all finisher damage or effectiveness by 10%, plus also giving you up to 6 count points of utility, but now it's only 5% increase. Now the difference between that is on current servers at a 5 count point Ghostly Strike applied run through 5 count points with deeper stratagem and Ghostly Strike, I am able to get under 200k worth of damage, and that is non-crit. But on the PTR, if I do the same thing, I get like 88k non-crit. So you can see the damage is like about 100 off or so, and that's pretty crappy. So it feels like I'm actually doing decent damage at full 6 count points, but the damage that I'm dealing is about 175k. That's like the high. No, if it crits, it can be higher than that, but it doesn't crit for like, you know, goes to like 300, bam, you know, the damage that I would normally see. It's like some weird crit that have been established in the game since like Warlords, and I don't think they've ever changed it. It's like not a 200% crit, but it's like 150% or something like that. I'm not really sure. But anyway, that's basically what we're dealing with. So the damage difference is there, and run through is one of the main ways of dealing damage for us. We have Saber Slash, we have Pistol Shot, and all that jazz. I keep hearing two different comments about those. I keep hearing people tell me Saber Slash and run through got buffed by a little bit. Other people keep telling me that the tooltip changed. So it's just the tooltip that was changed. They weren't actually buffed. So I just don't really know. But that's where the rest of the damage lies in, is Saber Slashes and Pistol Shots. One of the things I noticed for Outlaw, and I'm pretty sure it's a bug, so without it we would have 0 damage, but when I'm using run through, my greed has a chance to proc more than once. So my greed is proccing like 2, 3 times, 4 times at a time, and that's where most of my damage comes from. So sometimes I'm hitting an enemy with run through and it hits like a wet noodle, but then greed procs like a bunch in a single global, a couple times, like 3, and it feels like an actual run through that just went off. It just, I did all, I'll say AoE damage and heal myself for plenty. And it's just the weirdest combination ever. I don't really understand it. I think it is a bug for Blizzard right now. I'm not really sure how to deal with it. I'm not really sure how to explain it either. If it's a bug, then this sucks. If it's not a bug, then it's basically going to make Outlaw viable in terms of damage. It'll be just like randomized damage, so it'll be a lot like what Subtlety has for their Shadow Nova and what Assassination has for Bag of Tricks. It'll be the same thing for us, but with greed. So it'll basically be the same mechanic of like this random AoE damage. With varying strains. I don't really know. I can't really explain it. I still feel like it's a bug. So if greed never procced, I feel like my damage would have literally been none. There are some moments when I'm playing arena, my damage is decent or can even be at the top. But in most cases it's kind of like a struggle, and it's, as far as I understand, like this random chance for greed if it's gonna proc or whatnot. Otherwise it's, I guess it's functional for now. I don't really know how to explain it. They didn't have anything in patch notes saying greed procs a lot more often or anything, so I am guessing it's a bug. So majority of our damage, or main primary source of it, is kind of lame. The slow reduction is kind of lame as well. And I feel like this is pretty crappy for Assassin Outlaw more than any Spec. For Subtlety, you have mobility. You have Shadow Strikes, so you're able to teleport around and move around. you have a capability to step to a target once in a blue moon, which is very, very, very nice. Don't get me wrong. I just don't really know how I feel about the slows for Assassin and Outlaw. Some moments in Outlaw, if let's say my pistol shot hit as hard as like a Howling Blast, if it hit like for a decent amount of damage, then I feel like I'd have some range capability. So then it's like, oh, there's not as bad of a slow, but my range damage is decent, so I can do just fine. Then there's other cases where I'm thinking that I wish I could get up to the person. I am slowing him down. I'm spamming it. But like, let's say if a monk is using Tiger's Lust, which gives him basically a sprint, and I use pistol shot, it's basically nullified damage. So then it's like, or nullified movement speed. So the guy's basically running at 100% speed. So I really don't know. He's just running. He's just having a jolly good ride, just walking. Going on a fucking jog, and my slow doesn't do anything. It doesn't stop him, it doesn't peel, it doesn't do anything. So I have to come up gouge, have to stun, DRs, but here with like a slow, I could at least slow him down, so my friendly could get some opportunity to get around a little bit, and maybe have a little bit more opportunity to live. And I don't know. It's just such a weird mechanic, and it's something definitely to get used to. So I don't really understand it. I'm still trying to figure out why Blizzard nerfed it, and the only thing I can think of is Cut to the Chase. Cut to the Chase is an honor talent which allows you to match the enemy's movement speed and exceed it by 5%. So let's say an enemy slowed you by 50%, right? Let's say a monk slowed you with the hamstring, or whatever it's called, disable. Let's say a warrior slowed you with hamstring for 50% reduced speed. But then you slow the warrior for 30% reduced speed. And you guys don't have any movement speed buffs. Technically, warrior is faster than you. So then you're able to use Cut to the Chase to stay with the warrior at all times. And maybe that's where Blizzard is kind of pushing it towards. I was thinking that it's one of those things where Blizzard likes to do is instead of buffing abilities that are not as good as the one that's being used, they'll nerf the one that's being used the most. And I feel like kind of the Cut to the Chase got one of those treatments where nobody was really using it as often, so they nerfed slow, so then it's more likely to be used. And I feel like a similar thing happened to Deeper Stratagem. Vigor is not as good, Anticipation is not as good. Actually, Anticipation is really good for Subtlety Rogues. This rogue right here, this is me versus a Subtlety Rogue right now. Outlaw versus Subtlety, and you can just compare our damage. Here I'm going to get a gouge on the guy and get a decent opener on him. Actually, I'm going to start with an opener. He's going to trinket, or I trinket here. Look how much damage he did with a DFA. That damage is something you will want to look out for. Apparently DFA is really, really good for Subtlety. So here I get a reset on the guy. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of the Outlaw Rogue damage. I got decent buffs. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to ham out. Just go ham on the guy. And you can just take a look at some of the numbers that I'm getting in terms of my run-throughs, all my other forms of damage, my stuns, my greed. Thank God that's proccing, because if it didn't proc, I'd feel like I'd deal no damage. So I thought it was alright, right? A decent amount of damage. I didn't have all my cooldowns available. Although I feel like even on live servers, if I have all my cooldowns available, then they die. But here, I guess they don't, so maybe that's the direction the game is going to. And that was Subtlety Rogue Burst right now. With a single DFA, he was able to drop me fairly low. And that's one of the things that Subtlety is able to do right now. Subtlety actually got decent buffs. I didn't get to experience it myself, but I did get to watch him, and this guy literally went to burst me. Me and him just spoke in Russian a little bit, but that's one of the advantages that came from the patch, is Subtlety got a little bit extra damage in terms of its artifact power traits. I think Shadow Nova now has a chance to proc off of Shadow Strike and Cheap Shot, like a 30% chance for extra shadow damage. So it's not when you come out of stealth, it's just on your main abilities. So more shadow damage. And Akari's Soul now hits after 2 seconds instead of 4, so less delay, more likely to line up bursts together to have a lot of abilities hitting at the same time. So I feel that for Subtlety, there definitely has been buffs, definitely has been improvements, even though there's been nerfs left and right, but I feel like with the way the DFA has got buffed in terms of its AoE damage that it's able to bring, I feel like Subtlety actually might not be all that bad. And here's me and the guy just having a talk in Russian because he is Russian, so I decided to speak the language and figure out if he likes sub, if he doesn't. He speaks English, so it's kind of easier for me at the very end. But I asked him to burst on me, eventually. And the amount of damage he is able to bring once he has cooldowns lined up is actually exciting, so I'm very happy out of this. If anything happened out of patch 7.1.5, I feel like his Subtlety is a little bit better. I feel like Subtlety could be better, but the fact that this guy is able to one-shot people in arenas and in duels, I feel like that's progress. I don't know if I feel about it as an Outlaw Rogue, but I feel like that's progress. It's better than nothing. And I guess I can be happy on that end, because then it's like, collectively as a rogue, like we have a spec that's, you know, dealing damage. And it's almost making me feel like a little bit nostalgic of Subtlety Rogue, is that we're able to burst someone down in an opener. Although this guy has to play a really gimmicky playstyle with anticipation, get a bunch of common points, I try to recreate it with Outlaw, and surprise, I can actually have 10 common points with the artifact weapon. So I try to do the similar thing. It doesn't work quite as well for Outlaw, but it works pretty well for Subtlety. And I really don't know. But that's just in dual situations and whatnot, so it won't really be the same situation. And I really don't know how I feel about these nerfs, man. I feel like definitely these are nerfs, and I want to see what's more to come for Blizzard. I want to see some honor talent changes. I want to maybe see some other just plain class talent changes. I want to see it all. And I want to see some of the maybe damage tunings. If I see damage tunings in the future, and if I see talent changes, then I think I'll be pretty happy seeing, you know, where the game is going to go from here on. I mean, I guess it's not terrible, but I feel like by no means is it perfect, or is it really all that close to perfect, you know? I don't really know. I guess I didn't really feel all that good playing arenas. It was definitely fun, just not new things. It's fun, but I just didn't feel just as strong as I do on the live servers. You know, I get random greed procs, so it's all like uncertainty, like where my damage really is coming from. I get random damages sometimes. Sometimes I don't hit for worth anything. I hit like a wet noodle. So I really don't understand this. But I decided to bring this video for you guys and show you the games, and the primary purpose of this video is to showcase you the games that I was able to play, to show you what I was able to do for a little bit, and just share some of my moments with you, and have you guys answer a simple question like, what are your thoughts on the damage and the changes after you're seeing them in the gameplay format? Do you think this is some of the good changes or not? Also, I'm sorry I was not able to bring you Assassination gameplay, Subtlety gameplay, and Outlaw gameplay. I will try to get a little bit of everything for arenas to showcase you guys and show you some of the different changes in numbers. Just go into arenas, collect a bunch of data with SCADA, and see if I can provide you guys anything decent with footage and show you guys some real results. But what are your first initial thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Darren, and I'll see you guys in another video.